The top stories tonight in Y News. The water level in the Marikina River today surpassed the record when Tropical Cyclone Ondoy poured heavy rainfall in Metro Manila more than a decade ago.
President Rodrigo Duterte asserts that the government is on top of the situation in relation to the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses as the hashtag Nasaan ang Pangulo or Where is the President trends anew.
Several residents in Rizal admit they were complacent and did not heed the local government's call to evacuate before the lashing of Typhoon Ulysses in their area.
Backup plan for the storage of COVID-19 vaccine once a calamity hits the country still being studied, according to the country's vaccine czar.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, November 12, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, many residents in Marikina City were flooded after the Marikina River overflowed. The water level even surpassed the record when Tropical Cyclone Ondoy poured heavy rainfall in Metro Manila. Ray Palayo reports.
As of 11 a.m. today, Marikina River reached the 22-meter level. Mayor Marcelina Teodoro compared this scenario to what happened when Tropical Cyclone Ondoy severely affected the city in 2009.
Worst case kami, inaasahan namin tataas pa ito. Dahil kahapon, inaasahan namin 18 meters ang pinakamataas. Pero kaya nakita natin, lumagpas pa ito sa level ng Ondoy na 21.5. Pero daw tubig galing sa dam, yun ang naririnig ko. Dahil posible galing lamang sa ulan itong tubig na ito.
Tumana residents were rescued on their rooftop while some preferred to walk in flooded streets to go to safer area. In a street in Barangay San Roque, the flood reached chest-deep level. The Philippine Coast Guard also helped in the conduct of rescue operation. Evacuation efforts in the city started yesterday. Subdivisions in Cainta and even parts of Ortigas Extension were also flooded. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, hashtag Nasaan ang Pangulo or Where is the President trends anew on social media as Typhoon Ulysses hit Luzon. Following this, President Rodrigo Duterte conducts a public address and assures the public that the government is on top of the situation. Rosalie Cos will give us the details why.
President Rodrigo Duterte was attending the 37th ASEAN Summit online but briefly left the plenary session to address the Filipino public after Typhoon Ulysses battered several parts of the country early this afternoon. The chief executive assured the public, especially those severely affected by the typhoon, that the government is prepared to respond to those in need.
I assure everyone that your government is on top of the situation. As President, I guarantee you that your government will do its best to provide assistance in the form of shelters, relief goods, financial aid, and post-disaster counseling.
He added that government assets have been prepositioned to respond to the crisis and even the newly acquired equipment of the military are ready to be utilized for rescue operations. He also called on local government units and concerned agencies to ensure that the well-being and the safety of the people remain the top priority.
Rest assured, the government will not leave anybody behind. We will get through this crisis, I assure you. As one nation, kapit po tayo, mga kababayan, magbayanihan po tayong lahat.
The president also has a message for those looking for him during the typhoon onslaught.
Gusto kong lumabas, gusto kong lumangoy. Matagal na ako hindi naligo eh. Kaya lang, Ayaw nitong mga sundalo. Sila ang ayaw gustong maligo. Ibig sabihin. So, ganun no ang sitwasyon. It's not that I am at a distance from you. Na may distansya ako ngayon sa inyo. Gusto kong pumunta doon. Makipaglangoy nga sa inyo. Ang problema, pinipigilan ako. Kasi raw, pag namatay ako, isa lang ang presidente.
Around 3 p.m., President Duterte left Malacanang and conducted an aerial inspection over areas severely affected by the typhoon in Metro Manila as well as in Rizal. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, has received around 90 direct requests for rescue as of late afternoon due to the heavy flooding caused by Typhoon Ulysses. NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal said they have deployed over 300 teams, or equivalent to more than 1,000 rescue personnel, to help in rescuing residents who were trapped in their houses and stuck on the roof. Based on its initial tally, more than 53,000 families or over 196,000 individuals were evacuated preemptively. Assessment on the number of families affected by Ulysses and damages to infrastructure and agriculture is still ongoing. Meanwhile, the NDRRMC confirms the reported death in Camarines Norte, while 1 suffered injuries and 4 went missing. Meanwhile, the Office of the Civil Defense denied that it was caught unprepared by the typhoon. The agency said they notified the regional disaster risk reduction and management offices as early as November 8, when Ulysses was still a tropical depression. OCD Assistant Secretary Casiano Monilla said they have learned the lesson from Ondoy in 2009. That is why better planning and coordination has been in place among government agencies.
Ang DILG natin keeps a tab on the compliances of these local governments, and with these events na nangyayari, I guess siguro we need to revisit, tingnan natin ano yung mga kailangan talaga ng mga decision points na hindi pa nagagawa to be able to prevent any occurrences na kagaya nito na naman, another emergency, maabot tayo sa ganitong sitwasyon wherein we are into saving lives.
However, Monilla admits that they might need to revisit the compliance of local government units and its promptness during disaster response.
We're not actually flat-footed dito sa sa event po na ito. Kung minsan lang po kasi ang pag nag-ikot ang ating mga local officials, ay hindi kaagad sumusunod yung mga kababayan natin. Kumbaga, mas nagre-rely tayo kung ano ang ating nararamdaman.
The OCD assures there are still enough funds to respond to areas hardly hit by the typhoon.
Meanwhile, Manila City's tally of casualties due to Typhoon Ulysses was 0 today. Meanwhile, classes in all levels in the city are suspended tomorrow. Dante Amento tells us why.
The Manila Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office continues to monitor the situation in the city for any possible untoward incident due to the lashing of Typhoon Ulysses. Data from the city shows that a total of 1,125 families, or more than 4,000 individuals, were evacuated from different areas in the city, particularly those near the coastal and low-lying areas. They are temporarily staying in 14 evacuation centers. Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso is pleased that no casualty was recorded during the onslaught of the typhoon. The official has ordered city departments to conduct clearing operations and repair power lines and utility poles affected by the winds and rain. He has also suspended classes in all levels, including graduate schools, for tomorrow, November 13.
Tomorrow, all classes, all levels, private and public, sa mga teacher o mga employees ng school, at estudyante at magulang, please share this. Wala pong pasok.
The Manila City government does not allow evacuees to return to their homes without proper advice from national government agencies.
So sa may mga nagtatanong sa amin, meron na bang pinababalik? Wala pa po. Hindi pa po allowed. Better be safe than sorry. Anyway, wag ho kayong mag-alala. Ang inyong mga kaanak at mga sa buhay ay patuloy na inaaruga ng pamahalang lungsod.
The city assures that the needs of evacuees such as food and health assistance will be addressed through the Manila Health Department personnel deployed in different evacuation sites. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Local officials in Quezon City evacuate some of their residents amid the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. While in Malabon City, flood hits residential areas in Barangay Potrero near Tulyahan River. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why live. Yes, Asher?
Arlene, despite the preemptive evacuation, the Quezon City government has ordered several residents needed rescuing during the onslaught of Typhoon Ulysses. In Barangay Rojas District, some residents insisted to stay inside their homes instead of evacuating. According to Barangay Chairman Maria Carmela Gotladera, some fear of the risk of COVID-19 in evacuation centers, while others refuse to evacuate, saying they live on higher ground. But the water in Lagarian Creek has increased and overflown in the residential areas. The barangay officials immediately conducted rescue operations to bring the residents away from danger. 198 families are taking shelter in 4 designated evacuation centers in the barangay. A few residents of Barangay Bagong Silanganan were also evacuated due to flash flood. The water rose to about 5 feet in some parts of the barangay. The city's emergency operations center continues to monitor flood-prone areas. Meanwhile, in Malabon City, about 200 families or more than 800 individuals have evacuated from their residence near Tulyahan River. Malabon Public Information Office Chief Bong Padua explains these residents are mostly located in Barangay Potrero next to the river, which overflows whenever torrential rain hits the city and its adjacent areas.
Catch basin kami. Dadaan yan sa Tulyahan River. Kaya mapapansin mo, ang binahan ng matindi dito sa amin, yung Barangay Potrero, kasi doon sa lugar na yon, nag-spill over yung tubig ulan na nanggaling doon sa nabanggit ko nga, Bulacan, Quezon City, Valenzuela.
The Tulyahan River overflow has also affected the MacArthur Highway on the city's boundary with Valenzuela City. Because of flooding, the road is impassable to light vehicles. While in Caloocan City, over 200 individuals were also evacuated due to flooding. Mayor Oka Malapitan has already ordered the suspension of classes in all levels in public and private schools tomorrow. Arlene?
Thank you so much. Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development says they are ready to help local government units in their efforts to aid the victims of Typhoon Ulysses in their area. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
More than 800 million pesos worth of stockpiles or relief goods and standby funds are ready for distribution by the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD. DSWD spokesperson Director Irene Dumlao says they already have prepositioned 279,000 family food packs and other food and non-food items like hygiene kits to augment the needs of local government units. Dumlao adds that they continue to coordinate with the local social welfare and development officers and camp managers or those managing evacuation centers.
Tayo rin po ay gumagabay sa mga local government units upang matiyak na yung kanilang pag-manage sa mga evacuation centers ay sumusunod po doon sa ating mga panuntunan.
The DSWD reminds the LGU that despite the number of evacuees, the minimum health standards like wearing of face mask, physical distancing, and frequent hand washing must be observed. There should also be women and children-friendly spaces or areas for their protection. According to DSWD spokesperson Irene Dumlao, They are also doing profiling of temporarily displaced individuals or evacuees to make sure that every family will receive aid from the government.
Ang makakaasa po ang ating mga local government units, ang ating mga kababayan, that the DSWD will continue to provide maagap at mapagkalilang serbisyo.
Vincent Arboleda, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Malacanang suspends work in government offices and classes in public schools tomorrow in 8 regions, including Metro Manila. Also included in the work and class suspension are the regions of Ilocos, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, and Cordillera Administrative Region, or CAR. Meanwhile, government agencies whose functions involve the delivery of basic and health services, preparedness and response to disasters and calamities, and the performance of other vital services shall continue with their operations. The suspension of work for private companies, offices, and schools are left to their management's discretion. Malacanang advises the public to continue their regular monitoring of weather advisories and government announcements. Stay indoors and keep safe and dry. Also, the Supreme Court announced a suspension of work in all courts in Metro Manila tomorrow, November 13.
And for our weather update, Typhoon Ulysses has slightly weakened as it continues to move westward over the West Philippine Sea. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says as of 4 p.m. today, the center of Ulysses was located at 200 kilometers west of Iba, Zambales. It has maximum sustained winds of 120 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 150 kilometers per hour while moving westward at 25 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 1 is still raised over the western portion of Pangasinan, Tarlac, the western portion of Pampanga, Zambales, Bataan, and Lubang Island. Until tonight, moderate to heavy rains will still be experienced over Cordillera Administrative Region, the eastern portions of Cagayan and Isabela, Zambales, Bataan, Aurora, Cavite, the western portion of Batangas, and Occidental Mindoro, including Lubang Island, while light to moderate with at times heavy rains will be felt over western Visayas, Samar provinces, Metro Manila, and the rest of Luzon. Flooding, rain-induced landslides, and lahar stream flows may occur during heavy rainfall. Within the next 24 hours, the combined effects of Ulysses and the surge of the northeast monsoon will bring rough to very rough seas over the seaboards of areas under signal number 1 and also in northern Luzon, Occidental Mindoro, the western seaboards of Batangas and Palawan, including Calamian and Kalayaan Islands. Sea travel is risky for all types of vessels over these waters. Ulysses may exit the Philippine area of responsibility tomorrow morning.
Hundreds of residents of Barangay San Jose Rodriguez Town in Rizal lost their homes after being flooded due to Typhoon Ulysses. Joanne Nano explains why.
With the heavy downpour brought by Typhoon Ulysses, the water level of a river in Casiglahan Village, Barangay San Jose Rodriguez Rizal, connected to Marikina River, rose fast today. This is why houses were submerged in flood water. Residents could not do anything but stay on their roofs or rooftops to avoid the flood water. The Municipal Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office immediately rescued residents and brought them to evacuation centers. At around 11 in the morning, the rain stopped and the flood water slowly subsided. It was then residents saw their homes, valuable belongings, and even their businesses covered in thick mud. Even vehicles were not spared. Some residents narrated that barangay officials and local government advised them for an early evacuation. Some of them admit they did not heed the authorities' reminders.
Meron pong nag-ikot na barangay at saka ambulance na nagsasabi po na lumikas. Kaya lang po, naging ano po kami kasi wala ngang tubig. So, hindi kami nangamba. Kaya siguro ang ibang tao, kahit ako man po ay kampante na hindi siya ganun kagrabe, ma'am.
Tapos, yung mga bandang madaling araw na, doon na kayo natakot?
Opo, doon na po at saka doon na po talaga yung sunod-sunod na talaga yung malalakas na ulan, hangin.
Ang bilis po ng pag-angat ng tubig kaya ang dami po sa mga bahay na nagpa-flashlight humingi ng tulong doon po sa kabila po, kaya umiyak na lang po ako.
Some were in tears while narrating what happened and how they were not able to save anything aside from the clothes they were wearing. They needed to stay up all night the previous day, their stomachs empty. According to the NDRRMO of Rodriguez Rizal, residents of Casiglahan village did not listen to their precautions. They were complacent since Typhoon Ulysses did not affect them much. Residents narrated this is the most severe typhoon they have ever experienced here, and because they have nothing left, they are appealing to the government.
Nakita naman nilang sitwasyon na nilubog yung aming lugar, yung Typhoon. Tulungan naman sana nila yung mga tulad namin na walang isinaliba kahit isa na gamit.
Pagkain po unang-una, tapos damit po. Yung talagang unang-una. Kailangan namin dito.
Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health warns the public against wading in flood water to avoid getting infected by leptospirosis. However, if this can't be avoided, the health department said the person who waded in flood should consult a doctor to get a prescription for medicines against leptospirosis. DOH stresses that a prescription is needed before a person could avail doxycycline. Also, the DOH cautions the public to avoid taking antibiotics without the doctor's advice. Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that 1,407 new cases were reported today, raising the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to 402,820. As of today, we are country number 25 in the global tally of COVID-19 cases. The number of patients still being treated for the disease increases to 32,682. We have lost 11 more patients. But through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 211 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 362,417. That is the 16th highest number of recoveries from coronavirus worldwide. Thanks be to God.
The government is still studying different strategies for the storage of COVID-19 vaccines. According to Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., this is to assure that the vaccines will be kept safe even when a strong typhoon hits the country. Aiko Miguel reports why live. Yes, Aiko, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, well, good evening. Typhoons keep on hitting the country. The government also admits that one of the challenges the country is facing is the need for a cold storage for COVID-19 vaccines that has to be stored at extremely low temperatures. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. assures that they have been planning strategies so no vaccine will spoil once the government procures and if another calamity hits the country again. Here is Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr.
Meron silang mga generators. Yun po ang ginagawa nilang backup. Kasi ang ano po nila, nakita nila na pagka sa fault chain, especially yung negative 80 to negative 70 to 80 at saka negative 20, na yung ibang supplier ng yung tatawag nating vaccine company, bumibili na sila ng mga boxes na regulated, automated na kagad yun, na pagka nagkaroon ng tatawag nating pagbabago ng temperatura, automated na mayroong indicators.
Experts and stakeholders are also set to conduct a logistics and service support summit to thoroughly plan the storage and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. Based on experts' information, potential vaccines of Moderna and Pfizer have a required temperature. Moderna's vaccines should be stored at negative 4 degrees Fahrenheit, while Pfizer's vaccine should be stored at negative 94 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 70 to negative 80 degrees Celsius. Temperature mistakes will make vaccines be put to waste, thrown away, and will no longer be used to people.
Hindi po acceptable yan pagka nagkaroon po tayo ng wastage. Pag-uusapan po yan kung paano natin mape-preserve yung potency ng ating with the challenges that we had na we need a very complicated cold chain. Kasama po yung mga backup pagka sa mga tinatawag natin nagkaroon ng bagyo, magagawa po tayo ng tinatawag spokes and hub storage system. Yung mga critical, doon lang po natin i-deploy sa Manila at sa mga areas na mayroong cold system.
According to Secretary Galvez, whale vaccine storage system is essential to keep its potency. Meanwhile, DOH assures that vaccine experts are thoroughly evaluating potential COVID-19 vaccines. Here is Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the spokesperson of the Department of Health.
So bago pa lang dumating sa Food and Drug Administration ang mga dossier ng mga manufacturer for these vaccines na bigyan na po ng evaluation na tama ng ating vaccine experts panel. Kapag hindi positibo ang kanilang rekomendasyon, hindi po tutuloy sa FDA ang ating proseso. So that is our safeguard now.
Whale COVID-19 vaccines are expected to be available by the second quarter of 2021, which is considered as the best case scenario. That is the latest live. Back to you, Will.
Thank you very much, Aiko Miguel, reporting live. Singapore is hoping to get shipment of COVID-19 vaccine by early next year after successful clinical trials. Roy Checa, who is now in Singapore, will tell us why live. Yes, Roy, good evening.
A COVID-19 vaccine co-developed by Singaporean researchers is expected to ship here in Singapore by early next year, Arcturus Therapeutics said Monday, November 9. With positive preliminary results from early-stage trials conducted here in Singapore, the final phase of the clinical trial for the COVID-19 vaccine will likely start before the end of this year. The final phase will have a larger scope of volunteers, usually having thousands to tens of thousands of people, and are often held across multiple jurisdictions or countries. The aim of this final phase is to mainly see if the vaccine can grant protection from infection rather than just a cure. Professor Uy Eng Yong from Duke NUS Medical School, who had co-developed the vaccine with Arcturus, said that the results so far show that the vaccine could be effective as a single dose. With Singapore's Economic Development Board investing 60.5 million Singapore dollars into the manufacturing of this vaccine, Singapore hopes to expect shipments to begin in the first quarter of 2021.
Yes, Roy, can you give us an update on COVID cases there in Singapore?
Yes, as of yesterday, November 11, there are currently 73 active cases here in Singapore. 40 of them are being isolated in community facilities, and those hospitalized are all currently stable. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Roy Checa, reporting live from Singapore.
The 37th ASEAN Summit officially commenced today via teleconference, with Vietnam serving as the chair country. From Bangkok, Thailand, Therese Longbowen will tell us why live. Yes, Therese.
Due to the current pandemic, the 37th Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN Summit, is held through teleconferencing, which is done for the second time this year, with its theme Cohesive and Responsive. The opening ceremony was held this morning with Vietnamese Prime Minister and 37th ASEAN Summit Chair Nguyen Xuan Phuc delivering his opening remarks about the challenges of the current pandemic, a recap of the 36th ASEAN Summit, and the things to be accomplished for the 37th ASEAN Summit. He emphasized with the summit's participants that their task is to fight the pandemic and secure recovery. The ASEAN Studies Center ISEAS, Yusof Ishak Institute of Singapore, was also awarded the ASEAN Prize 2020 at the opening ceremony for their efforts in promoting better understanding of ASEAN. Some of today's summit highlights include the release of the midterm review of ASEAN Community Vision 2025 blueprints and ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework. launch of the ASEAN Regional Reserve of Medical Supplies, and being held for the first time, the ASEAN Women Leaders Summit. And that is the latest for ASEAN Summit.
Therese, how long will the summit last, and what are the other things we will look forward to for the rest of the summit?
The 37th ASEAN Summit will be until the 15th of November, and some of the activities for the rest of the summit include the 8th ASEAN-US Summit, 23rd ASEAN Plus 3 Summit, 11th ASEAN UN Summit, and 4th Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership or RCEP Summit.
Thank you so much, Therese Longbowen, live from Bangkok, Thailand.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 12, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold, and because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.